All right, let me go in here.
So, by the way, I like lots of difficult, interesting questions.
Yeah, don't worry about that. You haven't watched too many of the shows, or you know that's what I do.
Yeah, no
Seriously.
problem. Yeah, cool.
That's what I'm known for. Not
Oh,
difficult
good. Yeah,
questions.
that's great. Love it.
All right, let me share this around since we got a false start. Resurrection is not limited to icons, but unlimited to the life of our souls. We have all walked the dark nights when we thought we were in the right, and we have all walked in the light when we thought there was none. Oneness is underestimated because it covers far more than peace, love, happiness, and the trappings of dogmas. Oneness is to understand that all of the dark nights hold the same face and that everyone's pain is equivalent when weighed against their singular life experience. Oneness is releasing every possession, which really had been possessing us all along. The old family gripe, so easy to blame on another, the religions and icons forced on ancestors at the price of land and freedoms forsaken. The government conspiracies and royalty belied of the dark demagoguery of foolish human pride. The chains and the stains, the shames and the blames, that even if we're true, serve no purpose but to hide us from ourselves and each other. Divinity is always becoming, always on time, leading to the first and last, the end that begins. I am soul.
So,
Okay, I think we're ready. I think we're ready to start now. We had some technical difficulties. Thank you everybody for your patience. Let's see what we got going on here. We've been out for about 3 days. Let's see. Let's see here. Yeah. Let me just pull everything together, and we'll get started. This is gonna be an incredible show. We've got a new face to introduce to the Soulogy crowd. Let's see here. We got 35 people in the house. That's cool. Thank you for your continued love and support and contributions. It keeps us going. We are 100% viewer supported. We are refocusing on launching the independent site with the personal profile based community. The first in the world, 24/7, with multiple channels that eventually accessible by a handheld app. Hello, Angela Williams, Jania Gazda, Barbara Bradley, Matthew Tugas, Anna Gabriela Durbis, Michael Van Patten, Janie Hodges, 17 other people, Joan Kirkendall, Linda Burton from Florida. We got 39 people here. And we got a very special guest, a gentleman from Auckland, New Zealand. Uh-oh, he popped out. Sorry about that. Let's see. Can you hear me?
yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Yeah, if you pop out, I can't hear you. I didn't know that. So anyway, I was just rolling the show out. I know we had a rough start. Evidently, Facebook couldn't handle whatever we had, but we were able to go in the back door. Hello, Jody Lee and Ann Killick. So what we have here today, we have a gentleman on SOULSPEAKS 5D by the name of Edward Tagg, and he's from Auckland, New Zealand. And I just want to say thank you for sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. Welcome to SOULSPEAKS 5D. It's a conversation.
You're welcome, Todd. Great to meet you, and thank you for all your people that are tuning in and watching. Blessings and heart openings for this wonderful experience we're going to have today.
Yeah. And I had the bio pulled up, and I had that comment you put in the messenger about, the range of things that you could talk about. Mm-hmm. But they've since been deleted from my screen since we had all these problems. But that's okay. We're just going to wing it. That's what we do here. This, okay. By the way, everybody, this, by the way, is our 800th episode, our 800th broadcast using the Be Live platform, but we've actually done closer to 900. But I got the message today on this one that it's the 800th program. So that's pretty substantial. And so I think that's that's an infinity number, 8, with a couple of zeros compounding it. So on this show, we try to keep it spontaneous, intuitive, creative, imaginative, and courageous, because we have found through 800, 900 episodes that the greatest expansion, the greatest activations, the highest level of soul code exchange doesn't come from channeling. It doesn't come from transmissions or downloads. It comes from the individual experience being relayed to others in pure vulnerability and honesty. And I watched this phenomenal, intriguing occurrence happen for almost 2 years. So, yeah, this is going to be very interesting. Now, you are a very accomplished energy worker, I would say, practitioner. You have a wide range of things that you focus on, including traditional energy work, but also galactic, and so that's a pretty broad-based thing. I don't know if you've watched any of the episodes, but when somebody new comes on, I love to ask them this question first: when did you wake up?
Exactly 20 years ago. I think it was June 1997. Yeah, no, actually it was June. Yeah, May, June 1997. I was 35, I think. 35, yeah. 34. Yeah.
Wow. And was there anything significant that happened? A lot of people talk about some traumas that woke them up, sometimes an accident or a physical illness.
Yeah.
Was there anything in particular, and you don't have to talk about it, but I mean, was there something cataclysmic that happened and occurred?
Yeah. So I was studying sciences, and I was an atheist, and I was just a seeker, and then I got a triple synchronicity. I saw the word Kundalini 3 times in one day through an advert and a book and a friend, and I went to Osho's meditation Kundalini, with the shaking and all that. And then the following day, I had full-on Kundalini and Nirvikalpa Samadhi, sort of full-on spiritual enlightenment that lasted 10 days. And then I got abducted by reptilian aliens and had an implant with a big blood clot coming out of my nose. And then I started just getting all these downloads and channeling and having conversations with Mother Mary. And 33 minutes past 3 o'clock in the morning, and then 33 minutes past 7 o'clock in the morning, this voice said, go. So yeah, it was really huge, quite dramatic. Yeah, from being an atheist one day to being a full-on channeling psychic talking to Mother Mary the next day.
So did all this stuff you just described happen in a not in a day, but I mean, that was a pretty short period of time, wasn't it?
Well, the Kundalini and the awakening was 10 solid days, and you lose all human desires, food, sleep, sex, all that kind of stuff, and you just in oneness. So, and then when you come down from that, you kind of go, oh, I'm kind of losing it. And then you get too much psychic information. So I was seeing that number 8 you mentioned looked like infinity, and also the 7 on the side looked like a check, like a tick. And so whenever I saw 78 or 87, it was like God saying yes. And I had voices saying, follow that dog down the street, or I had car number plate numbers having significant numbers like 333. And I had
Wow.
this constant information coming to me through, shop window advertisements and telepathic and open signs and the tick sign. And it was coming all day, every day, and it was kind of exhausting. And then I started to get attacked. And that's when I had this alien abduction. After I went to a famous psychic training school in Belgrave Square called Spiritual Association of Great Britain. And they said, oh, by the way, beware, you might be abducted by aliens. And then it happened the following night. And I had a huge blood clot, and I had sleep paralysis, and I woke up and a big cold dribble, and there was a huge thick clot of blood, and I just didn't want to think about it. And then channeled through this woman, I found out that I was abducted, and I chose to have that experience so I could learn discernment. So that was one of the first 2 years was all getting attacked and learning how to discern.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a very interesting part of your story. And I want to come back to it.
Okay.
Because there's a lot more of a galactic presence more and more every day now for everybody. More contact and more experiences, more recall, more memories. So I think this would be really good. Now, you went to a particular school, and I don't remember the name. I had it pulled up. I'm going to try to pull this stuff up again, but you went to a particular school. You just mentioned it right now. Was it what was
the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain? I think it's 25 Belgrave Square in London. I mean, I went and I joined Jennifer Mackenzie's Psychic Development Circle, but because it was pitched for beginners, I was already doing that stuff, so I kind of found it boring and it didn't really help me. So I went for a couple of classes, and it's written on my bio, but I was already operating at a really intense level anyway, so there wasn't much I can learn. So by then I'd left and gone to Los Angeles anyway.
Yeah, very cool. Now, I'm still working out these technical bugs, but I think we're going to be okay. So now you went through all this stuff, and this was 20 years ago. So this is in the late 90s, 10 years before. Probably 10, 12 years before any in this type of forum or in social media, before there was any real big press or real big awareness of what we call ascension and the transition that we're going on beyond 2012. So did you have much of a support system? Did you ever think during those 10 or 12 years you were going crazy?
Well, the first 2 years I had zero, and I was always, there was just nobody. In London, I went to Benjamin Krem, and he was doing channelings from Maitreya, and I went up to him in the front and I said, hey, is there any group of people who are spiritually enlightened who kind of like meet behind the scenes? And he just kind of gave me a funny look, and he said, well, so he couldn't answer my question. And I went to Buddhist nuns and priests, and they just said, oh, this is all too much. You've got to quieten down and just kind of say, this mantra, and, Swami Narayan or whatever. So there was nobody. And that's why when I got 33 seconds past 33 minutes in the morning, and this voice said, watch TV3, and it repeated, and it was about going to Los Angeles because I loved the film Baywatch. And then I was having a shower, washing my hair, and this voice said, and I said, well, when do I go to Los Angeles? And it said, well, look on the steel pipe. And it said 26. And I said, well, that's 2 weeks away. So I can't go to Los Angeles 2 weeks away. I don't have the money. And they said, no, July. So they made me go to Los Angeles on the 26th of July. And I was a wood carver, and I made 4 expensive table legs for an antique dealer, and I got 800 English pounds, and then it funded my trip to Los Angeles. And then still 2 years, I had to go through lots of demonic attack to learn discernment. and all these visual and telepathic messages so I could understand. And then I met this really amazing New Zealander, funny enough, who was a retired police detective, and she was channeling Palladian through automatic writing, and it's this really weird script where her hand is moving independently. And then I basically learnt about my Syrian identity and that she was Palladian, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I really find this interesting too. And one of the reasons I love having these conversations is because there's so many people waking up right now. And we have had not a huge number, but I'd say probably less 5 to 8%, maybe 10% of the people that have come on the show, and even people I've known and talked to that don't get out there in front of the camera, because many don't. That small minority has had these experiences 20 years ago. Most of them had them 2011, 2012, give or take, and many, many people are having them now. But a lot of these experiences, or really all of these experiences, parallel each other. So anything you were going through, or I went through 7 years ago, or other people went through, it's the same thing they're going through now. And so that's why I try to ask some of these questions, what was happening at the moment. What I find really intriguing too with the work I do is that every show is the days go by is in more and more alignment. So it's not lost on me that this is the 800th show on the Be Live platform. And it's not lost on me that you have some particular keen insight, I would say balanced insight, into the galactic connection, or the galactic relationship, because we know we're talking about not just an external thing, it's also an internal thing. So I'd like to go back to that. You talked about now this quote unquote abduction you had by the reptilians. This was something you discovered in a channeling with somebody that was psychic, right?
Yeah, just it's lying down just in my bed. I never sleep on my back. I mean, I never sleep on my back. So there was 5 shadows at the foot of my bed, and the door was open, and my door's never open because I've got flatmates. But that was weird, and there was a shape in the door, and I didn't like this shape. And then I got fearful, and then my body wouldn't move. I couldn't even lift my arm up, and
Yeah.
I just and then I went into instant sleep paralysis. So I lost consciousness like really instantly. And I slept for about 13 solid hours, like totally like a log. I mean, no consciousness, no dreams, nothing. And then when I woke up, I had a great sleep, felt wonderful, but there was this coldness in my nostril. And I sprinted to the bathroom and I went like that. And there was this big blood clot. It was about the size of a golf ball, and it was solid. So it had formed because it had solidified, and it just dropped like an egg yolk into the sink. And then I thought no more of it. And then it was channeled 2 years later that I chose to have that experience, so I could learn discernment of light and dark. And it was a blessing, but it was also terrifying. So like that movie Communion, I saw that movie, and I just couldn't sleep. I had major problems.
I remember that movie. And I think this is really important because I can look back at my journey, and I had quite a few experiences and memories of what you're describing, and a couple of members of my family in my household, including the nosebleed thing. The thing is, I don't have the ironclad details, more of intel, of information that came in. But my point is, I think a lot of people can relate to the sleep paralysis, and that's been written about for centuries.
And this pressure on your chest, I have like someone's sitting on your chest. They used to call it the hag. There's an old lady that sits on your chest, so it kind of feels like that too.
Absolutely, and I think there's another name for it because I researched it one time. But you're right, and it's and it always has the distinction of a demonic type of thing. Now, I'd love to get into this part because there's been a lot of stuff written over the last, I want to say the last year, Beginning last year, there was a lot of channeling and transmissions downloads that were coming out. And I'll just give you a few of the high points, which were the reptilian hierarchy has been removed from the realm. The archonic fourth dimensional nefarious energies have been removed. The quarantine is over. I've listened to a lot of people talk about this. I've had conversations. I've seen people posting about it. But there's always this common thread of this collective intel that's coming in. I think a big part of it has to be, or had to be, the integration of all things dark and light within ourselves. Did you go through a process? Was it just discernment and learning what you could trust or not trust, or what dark was or what light was? Did you get to a point where you had to accept all aspects of the universe?
Well, when you go through Nirvikalpa Samadhi and Kundalini anyway, you basically reach a full level of total love for everything, and you don't dismiss or judge or push anything out. So I'd already reached a level of total love. I was just walking around just like romantically deeply in love with all human beings, even strangers. Like there was a black guy in Crenshaw in Los Angeles who was like, it was a really rough gang area, and he was like almost on the tears. And I put my arm around him and I said, "Can I pray for you?" And I just had this total love. You know, I was shocked when I went into Los Angeles, because the first couple of days I saw a guy drinking hydrogen peroxide hair dye. You know, he was so high that, I mean, he was trying to find his fix. And I thought, whoa, hydrogen peroxide hair dye on a bus stop in Santa Monica, you know. So I had huge amounts of love at that time. Coming down from Kundalini, it takes a long time. It can take about 2 or 3 years. I mean, I still have techniques where I can tap into it, but I was in total love all the time, you know?
Yeah. And the reason I bring that up too is because I still see after this, I would say it's been about 12 months when I started to notice that people were saying the type of things that I said earlier. But I still see a certain element of fear, and I see a certain element, obviously, as it relates to that separation. If you could tell anybody right now, you're a practitioner, and I've talked to many practitioners since the first of the year, particularly, who are saying that many people are coming to them that are waking up. I've had a Kundalini experience. What the hell's going on? All ages, all different walks of life. If you could talk to anyone who's just recently come to the awareness that something's going on, that's waking up, and they have this obstacle or challenge of understanding that they are all points of dark, all points of light, what would you tell them? What would you do to walk them through that point of integration, to get to that 0 point? Yeah,
powerful, great question. So that's actually my specialty. So I do that with people all the time. So there's a lot of techniques. The first thing you do when you're spiritual is you spend life as a mystic. And so you spend a lot of time in nature, a lot of time with animals, a lot of time just like, I've got 68 rose bushes, and I just really admire the variety of ladybirds, because I don't spray with chemicals. So lots of nature, lots of expressiveness. So I'm a retired professional ballet dancer, and I'm an opera singer. So lots of arts and lots of really high level, high vibrational art. So there's a very powerful singer that I discovered, and I got to know her family. And I hope she doesn't mind me telling the public, but I believe she's Palladian, and her name's Hayley Westenra. And the music is really angelic. So spend a lot of time purifying yourself with really high vibrational art and music and dance and expressiveness. A lot of time in nature, a lot of time just putting both hands over your heart and kneeling. And I just kneel and listen to this music and gaze out at the clouds and the trees, and just watch one leaf, just moving. So it's the path of the mystic, and I use music and prayer and observation. So a lot of people, when they meditate, they go inside and they just close their eyes. But I get more Kundalini and more Samadhi when I'm looking outside, and and it's called the process is called absorption in Indian in yoga. And what you're looking at, you get this depth perception collapses, and the cloud or the tree that's far away feels like it's touching your retina,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
absorbs into you, and you experience oneness. So if you can create that oneness experience through a technique of just absorption, and it's when our ego goes really, really soft, because, if you go into a forest and you talk to a tree, it's not going to say, hey, my stockbroking portfolio is pretty good today, and all the ego.
Yeah. I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's probably, yeah.
lots of
That's,
nature tuning in. Yeah. And the second part that's hugely important is I've done huge amounts of crying and emotional healing because I'm a Cancerian, and also inner child dialogue and validating your inner child's pain is probably the most important thing. So they say that the biggest fear is death and taxes, but I actually believe that the biggest fear in life for every human is that their inner child does not feel validated by you. And so if you don't talk to your inner child and say, oh, dear, 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 you've had this pain and this abandonment and this neglect, I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to listen to your story. Oh, and like a little baby, which is what I learned from Mother Mary. If you don't do that, this wounded inner child becomes the ego and becomes like, and creates a lot of split and schism in your soul. But if you can break that down through prayer, meditation, nature, beauty, and softening the ego through lots of validation, lots of listening, lots of sensitivity in your inner child, which opens the door to the inner God experience, you
yeah.
just blast all of that out of the water, really.
No, I love this. This is probably the best explanation I've heard that I can relate to. I'm not saying everybody else, because I'm not real good at the traditional meditation. I spend a lot of time walking in nature. What I love about this absorption process is that it doesn't take any thinking, because that's really the space that I've found that you hold. It's in between conscious thought and just this side of unconscious thought, or you know what I mean. It's like the space between breaths is what I say. So, and I can tell you that when I got to Hawaii in October, and I started seeing a lot of dragons, and they were mother energy, they were mother goddess energy, Mary energy. And so what you described happened to me. I went outside. There was the clouds. There was the stars, the clouds, a hill, some foliage, and right in front of me, a plant, like a kind of like a banana tree looking plant. It was dark, and that's what happened. I just sat there, and I think what you're describing in terms of how you get there is it's a surrender. It's an embrace. It's a surrender. It's a vulnerability. It's like, oh my God, I'm this small, but I'm this big. And everything flattened, like you said. Everything flattened, like there were layers, and they all became one layer. And then the plant in front of me started bobbing up and down. And it was a dragon. It was a dragon, and it gave me a little message. And so I can relate to that. And then I think the other thing that I really love about what you're saying is in terms of the artistic and the creative. I know the first 2 years that I woke up, I walked the streets for 2 years by my own volition, but I danced in clubs, hip hop, electronic music at 50 years old, which I'd never done before, and every night. And there was something about getting into that place of suspended animation where I didn't care if anybody was watching. I didn't even think about it. I just aligned with my soul. So again, here you go. It's not instruction. It's not going to a seminar. It's simply, aligning. And then I think the last part, and of course, I've also experienced that with writing and such, and you see people doing it every day. But the other thing that I love about what you said is the tears, whether they be tears of release or tears of reverence and gratitude. I think those three things are,
So I've
Very.
got a technique, and I actually got on a word process and I wrote it all down. So first I just listened to this music, and I learnt in my experience that God was beauty, love, truth, oneness, and joy. And I find that when I'm helping people getting into spirituality, beauty is the easiest way through the indoors. So when I'm listening to this music and I'm kneeling and have both hands over my heart, first I just get absorbed in the beauty of watching nature outside my window, and then I start to lose my ego identity, and then I become aware of my heart center, and then I get into perfection and effortless being. So when you look at nature, it's designed in balance perfectly. So the bird has the right beak that can get the right seed. So then you get into effortless being, where you don't buy into the trappings of the Western world, like try hard, try hard, try hard, try hard. You do the complete opposite, and you
Uh-oh.
and in that state you get this softening and this
Yeah.
relaxation, and it's like buying out of the old system, and you soften into this new gentle awareness, and then you place your total being in your heart center. I'm actually getting goosebumps fully on my legs right now. So when I get goosebumps, that basically means that my guides are really happy that I'm talking about this.
Yeah.
And then I start recognizing my inner child as being worthy, and you say things like, like, little Teddy, I love you so much, I'm proud of you, yada yada. And then I also start talking to God and looking up at the sky, and then you get into affirmations, and then you get into gratitude. So I really love Anthony Robbins, because he talks about gratitude in the early stages, and then your heart starts opening up. And I find that in my higher heart, or actually in my thymus gland, I get my chest starts pushing out, and you feel like your chest is bigger than it really is, and there's a pushing. And I did some research, and I found out during spiritual bliss that your thymus gland can expand to be double its normal size. And then you go back to the heart center, and you visualize light going away from you. And the biggest problem with spiritual enlightenment is that everybody's looking for something, and they think they're going to go to a seminar or a teacher and they're going to get something. But what I learned is that when you learn that there is nothing to attain, there's nothing to achieve, there's nothing to get, because you are God, and you have God inside you, inside your heart. So when you send love from your heart, it expands and gets bigger, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you learn that you are the power of the universe, and then you're in alignment with truth, because that's what you really are. And it starts getting bigger and bigger, and the light expands, and you just see yourself as, at that stage, I see myself as being integral with God, like sitting side by side, having a unified, and that's when it gets into oneness. And I visualize pushing light out. So that's kind of the technique of what I do.
Yeah. And again, I really resonate and align with that. I think that, yeah, I find it fascinating. Most of my time, I mean, I'm in a divine conscious union, and when we're together, we have constant interdimensional psychic experiences, but when I'm alone, my wife just went back to Australia for 3 months, and I will spend most of my time, if I'm not in front of the camera or working, I'll be outside walking. And what I find extraordinary over the last few months in particular is when I go outside and I'm alone. Some of this I've actually experienced with her, and it's like a symphony. It's like you talked about, the bird's beak is just the right size to get to this, the bees this,
Exactly,
and what'll happen is there'll be like a symphony out here, and the wind's always a big factor, because the wind will come in and almost like kiss my face, and then I'll see all these things align, birds flying at the right time, this animal moving at the right time, these sounds, and so it's extraordinary how this seems to be accelerating. And I know I'm not the only one, because there's a lot of what we would we would call in the old vernacular, we would call anomalies. They're not anomalies. This is what you're talking about. This is that perfection. And I love too what you're saying about the relaxation, because that's really what it is. You know, there's no pressing, there's no forcing. You know, people talk about the flow. You relax into the flow. You know, and it's like everybody needs to like chill out. Right?
You can't buy something, and you can't be worthy of earning something, and you can't attain anything, and you can't get anything, which is really catch-22, totally confused for the Western mind. You don't attain or get anything. You go, oh my God, I've already got it. It's in here. Wow. Joy, joy, joy. You know, where the heck did that come from? Surprise, surprise, you know?
Yeah. You know, with your perspective and your experience, there's something that's been coming up, and I've asked 2 or 3 people on this show, and this has just occurred, because I know as the individual goes, so goes the collective. All right. And as the veils have been removed per se, it's just a matter of us allowing stuff in, and people all over the world are experiencing things and seeing things and that type of stuff. But the thing that I've been trying to get more clarity on is let's call it the physical and the non-physical. Okay. Now, like yourself, many people, myself included, have had experiences, and we'll just keep this singular to what we would call star family or extraterrestrials. All right. At the same time, many of us, including you and me, have had what we would call higher dimensional experiences. And I'll give you an example, because I want to try to get some clarity on this. And I think you're the right person to maybe explain some of this or give us some more perspective. So my wife and I have this experience where we are connected to, let's call it a circle of life. This circle of life is a team. It's a team of my team, her team, at a very high level. They've made it clear that that is us. In other words, higher self, let's just call it that, or even highest self. Mission oriented, conscious of what we're doing here. The message we got the first time we saw him 10 days ago was the last time we met and you were conscious was 60 years ago, which was 3 years before I was born. So it all kind of made sense. Now, at the same time, we're walking around and we're seeing what people might call small grays. Okay. These grays have talked to me, talked to her. They've let us know that they're biological androids, basically. They've let us know that they were discriminated in the community. They've let us know that they're here to assist in manifestation in the physical. When I started experiencing this simultaneously, I said to myself, these two things are different levels. This circle of life up here is a very high level, and I hate to use these terms, but is in a different dimension, a different realm. It's like the overseer. This one down here, to me, seems to be that these grays and anything like that are just coming into visible light. They're just coming in. They're just an element of physicality that we haven't seen before. So what I'd like to find out is, what's your view on, is there a difference between, let's call it maybe the angelic and the galactic? Is the galactic just another part of our physicality, our physical experience, that's just coming into our vision now because of our expanded awareness?
So just a simple history lesson of what I learned that was channeled to me is that Palladians and Syrians began 15 billion years ago, and some group of Palladians decided to live underground in caves. And after a few generations, the portion of the brain that processes love got damaged because there wasn't enough light. And it's the same. So if you work on lots of ship working, and work in a job and you never see any daylight, that actually does damage that part of the brain. So after many generations, they become robotic and non-loving, and they evolved over many generations and became reptilians. And then there was galactic battles, and I think it started in the Lyra constellation. And basically, the Palladians and Syrians lost the war for a very long time. And also, Gene Roddenberry he went to a channeling group and he learnt, and that's why he wrote Star Trek. And also Battlestar Galactica, the movie, the beginning, that's very similar to the story. And so it's this famous galactic story, which is true, that's been going on for 15 billion years, and there's been a battle between reptilians and Sirians and Palladians, or the Galactic Federation. And they say that there are hundreds of thousands of planets, M-class planets, that have got human physical life with physical bodies. So most of life is physical. So I have a second body on Sirius. It's probably 6-7 foot tall, usually blonde and blue eyes. And then they arrived in Denmark 15,000 years ago, and they seeded blonde hair and blue eyes all throughout Scandinavia. And also, I believe they integrated with the American Indians about 15 years ago. They also crashed. They couldn't get home. And that's why the American Indians have problems with assimilating alcohol and other stuff. And that's I've been speaking to a Cree Indian in Saskatchewan in Canada recently, and their beliefs are very similar to the Palladian philosophy. So when I got abducted, I saw greys and reptilians, so I was told that the greys work for the reptilians. And I believe some of them go light and some of them go dark. And there's also the Zeta Reticuli, and they have green skin. So I'm not really up on Roswell and greys and Zetas and what they do. My specialty is really Sirians and Palladians. And Shakespeare was a Palladian, Mother Mary, Jesus, and Joseph, and all that lot, they were Sirians.
Yeah.
So I'm in Mother Mary's team. So when I go to sleep at night, I go up to the mothership, and I've seen beautiful rooms just made of pure agate, and they've got libraries, and it's like multi-level shopping malls, and I've walked up staircases and I've seen Gabriel, and I do a lot of flying in my dreams, and I also go to disaster sites in London and America, and I help out with disasters. And there was a crane that crashed in New York the beginning of last year, and so I was there in the astral and helping with the disaster teams. So I hope that's not too much for your group. But
No, that's not. In fact, I can relate to 99% of that, and I think other people can. These are the reasons that we talk about these things, because it does activate the soul memory in other people. I've received a lot of the same intel that you just talked about in regard to Yeshua, Magdalene, the Syrian connection, the mission here, led by that expedition, basically. Also, what you're talking about in terms of the indigenous and Native American, Aboriginal, the connection they have to the Pleiadian. I know that for the last, and that's all historical. I mean, that's all passed down through oral history. But I know recently, I've not really been a big stargazer, but over the last few months, particularly since I've been in Hawaii, I have noticed there's been a very prominent, almost like it's following me or speaking to me, and it's the Sirius Orion's belt. Aberdaron, which is like the eye of Taurus, and then it goes to Pleiades. And it's just like telling me a story, like this is the path. But back to what I was saying earlier, I think it's a little bit confusing for people, and maybe we put it a different way. There is a physicality involved with, let's say, the Zetas, because that's who I would think is the small grays. And I agree with you. I think there's some that are on this side, some are on that side. But there's also, is there a difference to you with this higher level, let's say the Mother Mary energy, the Yeshua energy, as opposed to what we're seeing here on the surface of the earth in a physicality?
Well, I know that the Syrians and the Palladians essentially are the highest vibration there are, and they've had a contract to work as guides, a bit like a parental kind of overseer of planet Earth. And I'm one of them, and I meet Palladians and starseeds all the time. So that's you and I and us, and there's probably about a
Yes.
million, maybe up to about a million of us, and all throughout history, I imagine people like Abraham Lincoln, Shakespeare, all these, definitely people like Mozart and Einstein. So they've come here to help. But
Yeah.
I don't know enough of a history lesson about the Zetas and the stuff that's happening in Roswell. I probably have a really strong feeling that the government are totally involved. They know everything. I don't know how much
Absolutely.
Donald Trump would know, but definitely in Area 51 and the Pentagon, I believe they
Absolutely.
know everything, and they're probably working with them. But also, I've been in galactic battles recently, where the reptilians and the Galactic Federation are just having this total, light show, shooting each other all the time, and NASA know all about it. You can see that when you get these NASA YouTube clips, you can see that when there's a lightning storm, the little Syrian craft, they zip in and they soak up some of the electrical energy to charge their engines, and they're shooting energy weapons at each other. So it's basically going on all the time. But in relation to what's happening with the Zetas, I don't know enough about them. It's not my specialty. I spend a lot of time, collating Syrian galactics kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. And that's what I identify with. And over the years, long before I had any I'm not saying I have an understanding now, but 7 years, 7+ years since I had my wake up experience, which was a straight cosmic Christ Syrian kind of frequency. But I had these reoccurring lucid dreams of these galactic wars. And I never
Yeah,
really understood it. Why am I watching this? Why am I watching this? Now I get to this point now, and it seems to be at a point now where we have sovereignty. So no matter what dimension I go into, no matter what realm, no matter what I'm faced with, I can stand in my sovereignty as a divinity,
mm,
and I am invincible.
mm,
Now the second part would be that I have discernment. So if I come across a Zeta, I have to follow my gut. If I come across a reptilian, I have to follow my gut. At the same time, we're on this transition of what we call, is being commonly called ascension, where the greatest power is the power within ourselves. If we focus on that, we make our great. If we elevate ourselves, expand ourselves, we're making the greatest contribution to the universal. How do you
yeah.
feel about that?
Well, yeah, raising your vibration is everything, and that's why we're so blessed to have higher forms of art, and that's why I was drawn to be a professional ballet dancer, and now I'm having opera singing lessons, and I have 68 roses, and I have about 32 old sewing machines that I love restoring. So art and raising your vibration is probably the most beautiful thing you can do to help the planet, and then obviously being of service, so helping others. So yeah, raising your vibration is basically the whole purpose of why we're here. And and see, I'm in a situation where my mother's died and my father's elderly, so I have to wonder, what do I do when my parents die? So the next stage is just being of service, because you can have your own selfish needs, but when you help others, you just get a lot more joy. So doing this talk with you, Todd, is probably the most joyful thing I've done in a long time, because it's being of service, and passing on that information literally is like turning a key into their DNA and opening up insights and codes, and this can have ramifications for the whole planet. And it's we shouldn't underestimate how important this kind of work is: sharing, raising vibration, unlocking keys, inspiring. Because when I started, there was nobody, and I had nobody. The first 2 years, I became semi-suicidal because I was getting demonically attacked and I was scared, and discernment was a nightmare. So what we're doing now is really, 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 really huge.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you. And again, going back to people who are just waking up now, I'm not saying things are softer now,
Yeah,
but and you obviously woke up long before I did, but those experiences occurred and occurred and occurred for many people. That's why I asked you the question, did you ever think you were going crazy? I want to ask you something else. I look at this. I don't trust anything but myself. And you know, obviously I trust my wife, but you know what I mean? I trust, look, we're the ones down here doing the work, not the reptilians and not the Pleiadians and the Syrian. We're the ones doing it, whether they're aspects of us or not, that's another subject. But we're the ones doing the work. We're the ones taking this heavily dense realm and transforming it into what I believe is the outer breath of Mother Creation, the place it's never been before. We're the ones that have the power. Now, I see that there's a lot of programs. The programs embedded in our DNA, in our genetics, whatever you want to call it. Programs that were tripped up by the archonic influence or whoever's behind it. It doesn't matter. I think that there's ascension programs running. I think that there's high-level psyops programs running. I think there's abilities or has been abilities and possibly still is, that is a quasi non-physical high level with ET assistance that can actually create voices in our head and that type of thing.
Yeah.
Now here's my thing. I have a little bit of a struggle with the prognosticators. I have a little bit of a struggle with people saying, here's where we're at now. Here's what's going to happen next. I personally think that's a potential implant because we know that our thoughts really are creating everything. What I really like about your delivery is that you keep it simple. It's not that far east woo-woo stuff. It's a mix of that and the experiential aspect of our lives. So how much emphasis, if any, do you have in prognostication, in people saying this star, this comet's going to fly by in 6 weeks and we're going to get a blast of this and that? I agree with you. I feel like we've made a brotherly alignment.
I don't do any of that because, I'll give you a reading that I got. I'll read you one because I got the same thing. But the problem is that these prognostications, they're only tendencies. They're not like chiseled in stone. So this said, Patar speaking, Edward, you are popularizing warships because you are starting to perceive the struggle that has been plaguing your planet for so long. We are popularizing you with information so you'll be ready when the time comes. You will not be afraid when we put crafts into your planet. You will be excited. Perpetuate your purpose by putting as much energy into learning, not books, without tiring yourself. You will need more sleep. People will need you in the future. Plant only pure food in your body. People are poor in wisdom on your planet. Prayer is the only thing that is needed. Meditation will be dangerous. Meditation leaves you open to other energies. You must specifically direct your prayers to God to pray for the wisdom of the universe. Yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, there's lots of other stuff here. But basically, they're only tendencies. You know, even God doesn't know the future. I mean, even God doesn't know.
Even God doesn't know where he or she came from.
Well, there's no Elohim or man with a white beard with the finger down. You know, you know what I mean.
Yes, we are. You know what I mean. That's right.
We are the consciousness of God. You know.
That's right. And so everything we see is that. And so that's what I was getting at. That's what I was getting at. The lesser God, so to speak, and the lesser God could be your neighbor. It could be the wrong partner in a relationship. The lesser God is about control and programming. So although I do think there's some validity to these prognostications, some people say on this date this is going to happen, this veil has been lifted, or this has happened, or that's happened. But I think it's no different than me going to a psychic and saying, okay, from this point on, what's going to happen in my life? You're right. It's a trajectory. It's a trajectory. If you were to spiritually push forward where you're at right now, this is what it's a probability. But the minute that session is over, everything changes because my thought patterns will continue to evolve, expand, and exchange and change. So I love what you're saying. I think this is so important to simplify this stuff down and to, like you said, to find those tears, to align through these artistic and creative things, to be out in nature, and to take, for the most part, all the words out, and certainly all the seeking from anything outside of yourself. This is more powerful than 5 reptilians walking in your bedroom and abducting you and sticking something up your nose. The reason they're doing the reason all that stuff's happening is, and everything has been by design, is to keep us from who we are, what we are, and what we're part of. So it's I just want to say thank you for this incredible brotherly alignment, soulful alignment today. I would love to collaborate with you again.
Okay, lovely. But we've still got some time, eh? We're not finishing now, are we?
No, we got another 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
Then I got to go to the. Then I got to go to the loo. I got to go to the loo, man.
Okay.
I just woke up.
So what's another good subject to finish on? What do people need, do you think?
Well, I think they need this. I think they need discussion, a conversation between two people.
Yeah.
That just happens to be broadcast.
Yeah.
Because this is what I've come to understand about Soulogy. And Soulogy was given to me 7 years ago, and I got to believe it was that Syrian Pleiadian thing. Okay? Syrian, Lyrian, Pleiadian. And I was shown things, and I was supported things. And I came together with my divine conscious partner, and something happened. The holy triad was created. The two souls coming together with unconditional love and pure intent created a third energy. Now the Soulogy energy starts talking to us, and it's just a reflection of pure energy. It's the reflection of the same common denominator in all of us that's innate, and it's a God seed, right? Now, what I have come to understand is that it's guiding itself. This is the expansion of the universe. This is the mission. Waking up was a prerequisite to understanding what the mission is, and that is to expand truth. Because at the end of the day, everything is the same. Everything is the same God substance. And the last point I would make is that, they talk about AI. These Zetas talk about, or at least what I picked up was that they were basically biological AI. Well, there is no AI. The moon is not, even if the moon is a hollowed out satellite that's been used to control us, it's still made of the same substance. Anything can be transformed and transmuted, but it's all coming from ourselves. So I think that these are not the things that you hear people talking about. You hear people talking about the conspiracies. You hear people talking about this happened and that. I think it's the personal experience and this vortex here in this small end of the universe. That's a reflection of the universal energy that I call Soulogy. Is all of the people that are watching the live and the replay create this and expand this consciousness of truth, and it begins to run and expand on its own, basically, attracting like and repelling unlike. Go ahead.
Can I please answer your question about the prognosticators before? Because I did some thinking while you were talking, and the best way to answer it is to talk about the planet and fear, and why people are in fear and the ego. And I find there's lots of teachings right now and lots of channeling, and I'm not going to mention names, but keep it real simple. The law of manifestation or co-creation or the secret or further down the rabbit hole. And the reason that's very popular right now is because people are feeling lacking, or they're worried, they're doing two jobs, and because the Illuminati are, through the banking institutions are making life for us very, very difficult. People are saying, well, how do I work as an accountant, but I hate my job, and how do I now get start up a Reiki business and become a healer and do that part-time, and will my husband support me working as the CEO, and how do I jiggle all that? And I'm terrified. I have no control. I can't manifest. My children are going nuts because, social change. And so there's lots of desperation. And so Mother Mary has been training me specifically for 20 years through this spiritual challenge has all been around fear and anxiety. And our planet right now has a huge mental health problem with teenagers and anxiety, and we need to know how to meet that need. So it's not just about manifesting what you don't want, but rather about tapping into your heart energy and just living blissfully with what you do have. So does any of that make sense? You've dropped
That's
out
it.
of camera, so I can't see your
Uh,
camera anymore.
can you hear me?
Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah, it's just on your end. So your stream was fading out. No, I think that's yeah, I think that's a great point. You know, a lot of this stuff we could go into another hour and a half. There's no question. But I think
Yeah.
we go back to the basics. And that is part of what you just said.
Yeah.
And that was the three things that you brought up at the beginning. Okay, which we keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
The nature, the artistic expressions, and I think another thing you brought up was the word prayer. And I understand what you're saying. In that channeling that you got, be careful with the meditation, because that's like going on a drug trip. And I've done many of those in my long ago in terms of hallucinogens. And a lot of people have. It does open the door, but it also leaves you in a place of not just vulnerability, but weakness. Okay.
Yeah.
But my point is that we go back to everything that you said. If we can understand that our most powerful force is our innocent, genuine, pure thought form.
Yeah.
So if we have an issue, for instance, with anxiety with teens, you know, do we go out and march and protest and boycott and raise hell, right? Or do we just clear that, integrate that within ourselves, can transmute and transform the ill will, if it be that, the ill will behind this false matrix, Illuminati, or whatever the case is. We're the power. One soul can activate hundreds of thousands, and you know that. And now we're coming together. So you say, what is the best thing we can do for our brothers and sisters is to have these conversations. You got chills up both your legs. They're on all my extremities in the back of my head. So I think we hit big pay dirt today. And I really do. And I think with the spontaneous part of it, I think it's where our real power is, because if you really think about it, no matter what we face, it's in the power of the moment, and that instant discernment and that instant intuition that we have our greatest power. It's when we start second guessing ourselves and say, should have I done this? Do I need to do? That's where that anxiety, worry, and fear comes in, which we know that template was set up. It goes back to at least the Nag Hammadi in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they talk about the archons and you know, in a big part of that, in a huge percentage of that text. I mean, we know what's going on. Now it's time for us to show up.
So Todd, I love you, brother. I love you very much. It's really just so amazing. It's about dropping that fear, dropping that ego, dropping like, how do I look in my Hawaiian shirt today? Dropping the, oh my God, anxiety. How can I pay my bills? And just saying, there's another way. And it sounds like we're preaching, but we're not. But like Mother Mary told me, the 4 S's. You achieve stillness by surrendering into the silence through softening. So that's a good philosophy I'd like to finish on, is you achieve stillness by surrendering into the silence through softening. So softening the ego, softening everything, like the anxiety, the worry, and just bringing in the beauty, a little bit more gentleness, a little bit more, you know, singing, a little bit more freedom and dancing. And we take back our power. We have the power. We are 100% complete, fully embraced in love inside us. There's nothing we need to do. We can't buy anything. We can't get another, you know, Dorian Virtue, you know, $800 weekend, you know, ticket. There's nothing we can attain. There's nothing we need. We don't need anything. You know, I just have this love flowing from you and to you, and I'm just blissed out right now.
Yeah, me too. And I want to say, I love those 4 S's. Mother Mary's been a big influence on me since I was a little kid. And I love that energy. But the softening, particularly now, if you look at from about 2015 2016, 2017, and about halfway through 2018, it was all about the divine feminine energy. The divine feminine's landed, taking her power back, kicking ass and taking names and all that stuff. And then about midway through last year, you started to see a masculine energy rising. And when you said the word softening, and this is coming from a conditioned, high level senior executive corporate career alpha male, a soft, beautiful spirit as a kid. Not that I wasn't later, but that got converted to this competitive alpha male who would seek and destroy, right? But it's the softening of that energy that I'm starting to see. The energy that you carry, the energy that I'm beginning to carry, and many men, it's not always related to the physical incarnation's gender, but that energy starting to soften in not just men, but women too. That seems to be the real home run and the real incredible dream that's formulating now. This is a powerful, powerful thing. And I just want to say thank you again for the work you've done for 20 years. And thank you for coming on the show. And again, I really would like to, I'll reach out to you or Morgan, one of us will, and we'll, and before we come on the next episode, if you're up for it, I'm going to go get me a Hawaiian shirt.
But hey, by the way, when you do that softening, you don't become a wimp or a victim, or
No.
You basically sit quietly in your heart, and then your heart expands, and you have love for the world, and then you experience oneness, and then you're not just in your own power, you're in the universal power as total. And I'm getting goosebumps again. So then we become, then we become God. That we realize the truth that we're already here.
Yeah.
Well,
it's so much beauty too in the physical representation of the energetic truth, right? So and with so much emphasis on the masculine energy and the word softness and the term hardness associated with the masculine energy and the physicality.
So we don't need to wait. We don't need to wait for another DNA download. We don't have to wait for a transmission. We don't have to wait for a source from the central sun to give us permission to do it. We don't need to ask the dolphins whether or not they're okay with us today. There's nothing to get. There's nothing.
That's right. That's right. And if you can be okay with your softness, because that's the only thing that's keeping us from getting there, in terms of harnessing that falsely empowered masculine energy that was embedded in all of us. The only thing that's keeping us from doing it, or that would keep us from doing it, is our own for whatever reason, our own repulsion of it, our own. Because the thing is I've often said, I look forward to the day that each and every one of us knows each and everything about each other. When there's nothing to hide. We've all done stuff. That's just the story. We're getting close. I think we're getting really, really close. And I think the energy of, particularly right now, of a masculine human incarnation such as yourself, the energy of that balance that shows that both sides of the energetic genders is really important right now. And I'm seeing more and more men step up now. And I think this is getting real exciting. I think this is going to be a great year. I'm going to ask you one last thing. What do you think this year is going to be like? The rest of it. I'm not saying you'd be a prognosticator. We've already talked about.
I don't have a television, and I don't watch the news. I know that Trump and the government are doing some crazy stuff, but my problem is that I'm really jacked out. I'm not really involved. So I have my roses and the trees and the clouds. So I'm kind of disconnected to the rest of the world. I mean, I do have wonderful, amazing conversations with people, but the planet is going through some crazy stuff. Governments.
I think I meant more in terms of what we talked about. I can respect what you're saying, because that's
Yeah,
just a distraction.
I'd like to give you an answer, but I'm actually quite ignorant on that subject. I don't know what.
No. I'm not talking about that anyway. I'm talking about, because that's just a distraction anyway.
Yeah.
Period. That's just programming anyway.
Mm.
Because that's just feeding the old paradigm of there's something more powerful than us, the boogeyman, whatever the hell it is. What I'm talking about is teleportation. I'm talking about expansion of multidimensionality. I want to go pick up my wife in Australia tonight and take her to Venus. I'm talking about the expansion of our divinity in the physicality, which is the great part of this trip.
Yeah.
Do you see individuals being able to do that? Because we all know that once somebody does something, it's like that 100th monkey thing. It just starts to grow. Do you think?
Well, the only thing I know really is that we do have our spirituality, which is our heart, but I don't believe in superpowers or in the physical. I mean, I believe that the Palladians and the Syrians, they have motherships and UFOs, and they have technologies and free energy. But I believe that when we're kind of educated, they will land and they'll make first contact, and we'll just learn to live like them. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but I think there will be first contact one day. Hope maybe in my lifetime. But yeah,
that opens. Yeah, I think that's already started. I think but that opens up another. We can go on for hours, because then you get in. Yeah, I got so many things going off in my head now. But I just want to say it's been a real pleasure. We are the power.
Yeah.
We are the universe. Yeah. And don't get distracted.
I have a feeling that you and I will get to know each other a lot more in the future. But can I just make a statement to your listeners?
Absolutely.
So I want to say to everybody who's listening that you are the love. Love is inside of you. I love you. We're all doing this love thing together. It's not some flower power in the 1960s. It's real, and here we're connected. It's all up to you. We can do this as a team. We can do this together. We can come together, let go of the anxiety, let go of the old illusions. It's all available, and you're already beautiful and perfect right there, right where you need to be right now.
Right on. And please put up your links in the comments. Okay. When the show's over in a second, just put up your links, because you're going to be getting a lot of messages and people reaching out to you. So I hope your calendar's got a little room in it.
I'm not really a techie. So when you say put up my links, what kind of links? Just like my Facebook?
Yeah, I would just open up your cut and paste if you have a website, wherever people can find you. People are going to be hitting you up for your services. I mean, it happens. I watch it happen. 800 shows.
I'm primarily Facebook, so I'm quite simple. Okay. I didn't even have a website yet.
Okay, so for those live and on the replay, somebody, if they would go to his personal page, copy the URL address and stick it in the comments. I know somebody will do that, and I appreciate that. I'll be reaching out to you, or Morgan will be reaching out to you. I'm going to go buy a Hawaiian shirt.
So Todd, I've really enjoyed this. I have a feeling that we're brothers, space brothers, Earth brothers, whatever. So just really great. But you're welcome to talk to me anytime.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd say we are too. All right, brother. I'll see you later. Peace out, everybody. We'll be back a little bit later today with a couple of more shows. One impromptu show and one scheduled at 8 o'clock New York.